Jordan Rains here with the IDP 411 podcast. Just want to tell you guys today about our sponsor of the show, expandtheboxscore.com. Expandtheboxscore.com has premium NFL and college football stats. They're adaptable, they're affordable, there's all kinds of great stuff on there from the NFL to college football. It's great for people that are in the Devy leagues looking to get that edge over their league mates. So go check out expandtheboxscore.com, proud sponsor of the show. And now without further ado, on to the IDP 411.
What's up? This is Jared Gray with my co-host Jordan Rains. We got my man Dynasty Chef in the background, keeping us up to date. Today we're going to do our defensive line updated rankings right before the season. We kind of did one previous, and we got some news to talk about. So, Jordan, how you doing this morning?
Good. Got married last week, as many of you guys know. It was a great week. Had a family vacation / honeymoon because I got 2 kids, so one of them was really young. But it was a good time. Had a great week off, and was kind of still in and out on Twitter and paying attention to fantasy football news and whatnot. But mostly, I was just sitting in the creek, drinking beer, floating down the river, doing fun stuff like that. So
that's all that really matters.
Yeah, but I mean, we're 2.5, 3 weeks away from football, so I'm ready to crank this stuff out. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, man, it seems like now that, training camp's popping out, injuries are getting crazy. And
yeah, we've actually got real news, for the first, I feel like all summer we didn't really have any news to report. But I mean, we got some injuries. We got Todd Davis hurt his calf. We got
the
Sean
same injury
Williams
that hurt him out last year too. So that's a big deal that people need to look on. AJ Johnson is definitely trending upward in that one. So
yeah, he's been a kind of a sleeper for a lot of people. He graded out really well in PFF and kind of was pretty productive last year. So I've been seeing a lot of people hype him up, and I mean, kind of duly so. So he should be the main tackle getter there. Todd Davis is unable to return quickly. Sean Williams also hurt his calf. So that's Von Bell, arrow pointing up. I've had him in my top 10 DBs off for a while. We'll do that show next week. But yeah. And then who else do we have? Avery Williamson came off the PUP, which is good.
That's big.
And Mac Wilson hyperextended his knee. I think he tore his ACL personally, but I'm not a doctor.
I'm not a doctor either, but going to see, Dr. Andrews is never a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
When you're saying, oh, I'm going to go see this guy for a second opinion, you're not seeing that guy for a second opinion. You're seeing him for surgery.
Yeah,
because he's the best in the biz,
Yeah,
so.
the first opinion was not a good one or good news. So you're looking for that silver lining, but I don't know. It's probably not going to be there. That kind of sucks. I know a lot of people want him to break out, but the reality is, Sion Taki, and then you said B.J. Goodson was the other guy we need to be.
Yeah, B.J. Goodson, they've definitely put him into the lineup right now, and he's looking like he's leading. He's the senior presence. That's a very young linebacking core. I mean, super young. He just seems like he's taking his role, and he's calling plays right now. So it looks like he's going to get the green dot if Mac Wilson's hurt. So beware of that. B.J. Goodson's for real. So
nice. Well, that's pretty much it for the really big news. I mean, Earl Thomas got himself into a little fight yesterday, but who cares about him? And
he got suspended.
Yeah, he's that dude's trending.
I think he's done, dude.
He's been trending down for about 2 years now, so that sucks, but whatever. Moving on. Melvin Ingram also is like having like the pseudo holdout, like he's showing up to camp but like not doing stuff. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. I really wish. I hope that gets sorted. It looks like he did end up going back to camp, actually, now that I'm looking at it. So
yeah, he went back to camp.
Good. He's always good he's always underrated, and he's always good for points in IDP, and you can get him so late, because he plays next to somebody who's going to be in both of our top 5s here in a minute when we get to that. So let's go ahead and jump right into these DL rankings. We actually spent more time talking early in the show today than usual. So I'll go ahead and break down my top 10, and then we'll go to your top 10. I was unable to make a graphic for your top 10 like I told you before the show, but we can read people back what we got on our notes. But for the YouTube people, I'm going to pull up my top 10 guys going into the 2020 season for DL. I got Danielle Hunter at 1, Myles Garrett at 2, Nick Bosa at 3, Joey Bosa at 4, J.J. Watt 5, Aaron Donald 6, Cameron Jordan 7, Cameron Hayward 8, Chase Young, that rookie love, at 9, and then DeMarcus Lawrence at 10. And then, Jared, why don't you read them back your top 10 for us real quick? Here, I'll get them for you. I'm looking right at them. Jared's top 10, a lot of the same guys, a little different order. He got Joey Bosa. He got Joey Bosa at 1, Myles Garrett at 2, Danielle Hunter at 3, Aaron Donald at 4, Cam Jordan at 5, Nick Bosa at 6, Josh Allen of the Jacksonville Jaguars, not the quarterback, at 7, Carlos Dunlap at 8, love that pick, 9, J.J. Watt, and then Dante Fowler at 10. Who Dante Fowler, I love that top 10 guy right there.
Well, I think
let's go ahead.
I think we'll just start from the top down, different wise. For me,
yeah, you have Bosa and I have Hunter. What's up with Bosa? Why are you feeling Bosa this year so much?
I think he has to prove his contract. It's not as much that I'm feeling Bosa; it's that I'm not feeling Danielle Hunter. I'm going to stick to my guns. Bosa is the cream of the crop. They're a young team overall. Derwin James, Kenneth Murray, Nasir Adderley. They're young overall. So in that aspect, I think Joey Bosa, he wants to prove that he's the Bosa, not that Nick's the Bosa, right? And Nick's for real. Let's not get that twisted. Even Trent Williams said this last week that he's that good. But I think Joey Bosa really stands out this year. Comes up, is very possibly the number one of the defensive end group. I can be honest with you, Aaron Donald is still screaming up my board, especially hearing he's getting defensive end reps. So that's scary for anybody. I just think he's going to move up. And as much as I love Danielle Hunter, losing Linval Joseph and Everson Griffin, it's kind of one of those things I'm going to have to drop down, and Joey Bosa's, I don't care who your left tackle or your right tackle is, he's hard to handle, bro. I mean, he's real. Yeah. So his quarterback hurries are real. So.
I've got Joey a little lower in my rankings. I got him at 4. But yeah, I mean, when you talk about those top 2 guys for each of us, the thing that is very similar, there's 2 things that stand out to me that are very similar. One is the high tackle floor. Danielle Hunter is basically hitting 70 tackles the last 2 years. Joey Bosa, in the 2 seasons where he's played a full 16 games, has hit 67 and 70 tackles. So you're getting an extremely high floor with both of our number 1 guys. And then also, Joey Bosa in the 2 seasons that he's played all 16 games, started all 16 games, he's hitting double-digit sacks. He's had 11.5 and 12.5 respectively. You look at Danielle Hunter, similar story, where you look at his 16 game starts, the last 2 years, 14.5 sacks, his tackles 70 and 70. So you're getting extremely high floors on the tackles, which you love to see. And then you always have the sack upside because these guys are legit. They're game wreckers. They live to pass rush. My one knock, and it's funny, both of these guys are our number 1 on both of these guys, which I brought it up over the summer, but I'll bring it up again now, is the lack of pass deflections. I like guys that if the sack doesn't fall their way that week, if they don't get that extra tackle for loss, knowing that they're going to pull down 3, 4, 5 pass deflections in a season, that's a 3-point play in IDP 1, 2, 3 scoring. And just knowing that little cushion is there, that little insurance policy from a player, that maybe he doesn't get behind the line of scrimmage, but he's going to knock a ball down at the line of scrimmage and provide me some points. I love that. And, Joey Bosa's career, he has 1 pass deflection. I mean, the guy's played 59 games. He started 49 games. He's played 51. He has 1 pass deflection. I don't like that. Now, he makes up for it for the fact that he's consistently high floor and consistently high ceiling, but his ceiling is a little bit capped because he's not doing these extras. Danielle Hunter, same story. I mean, the guy's played 78 games. He's got 3 pass deflections, and let's contrast that just for fun. Let's just go just for fun. Just real quick, I'm going to run to Nick Bosa. This dude's started 14 games. He's already got 2 pass deflections. You know what I mean? So he's, that's a 3-point play. He's getting points other places as well as being a very good behind the line of scrimmage guy. So if I was going to give either of those, our top 2 guys, a knock, Joey Bosa or Danielle Hunter, it is the fact that their pass deflections are not super high. But, when you're an elite pass rusher, you're an elite pass rusher because you're probably focusing on your pass rush. So I can forgive that. And like I said, we both have guys in our top 2 at our number 1 spot that do not pull these these things down. So, but that just goes to show you that when it comes right down to it for DL, you really want those premium stats. You want the sacks, tackles for losses, and you want the high tackle floor, which they have. So those are our two number one guys, Joey Bosa and then Danielle Hunter. Number two for me and number two for you, I believe, right? Yep, is Jurassic Myles Garrett. Tell us why you think why Garrett's your number two, and then I'll just kind of piggyback off of that.
He probably has the quickest get off in football. I mean, which also hurts him because a lot of times he jumps the snap, and I think he's had 10 or so offside penalties because he does that, because he tries to anticipate a snap. And if I was a quarterback, I would do a lot of hard counts against him anyway, because most left tackles can't handle him. So that's the biggest thing. He's fast. I mean, he's extremely fast around the corner, and he's a monster, dude. I mean, you see his step off. He's got a good spin move. I mean, which not many defensive ends have a spin move, Yeah. So when you have one and you can't handle him anyway, I mean, it just shows that I just think he's elite.
Yeah, the versatility. His pass rush moves are, his repertoire is big. Like you said, there isn't a left tackle in the league that he can't get around if he really wants to, because he'll figure him out, which is something that, before I played IDP, I didn't pay a lot of attention to. But, when you start paying attention to the defense, you start noticing these guys. It's not just a guy running straight at the quarterback over and over and over. There's so much nuance in the game. And you pick up on that whenever, there's points on the line.
Yeah, for sure. That's for sure. Well, here's my thing is, adding Sheldon Richardson really in his second year, I think is going to be huge for Myles Garrett. He only got to have him for a little bit last year. But the thing is you look at, he went at the end of the season. He didn't have any crazy numbers last year. His quarterback hits were phenomenal, though.
Yeah, 18
at the time. So
10 games.
I mean,
there were guys that didn't get that played all season.
Yeah, that's on pace for what, over 30. So I mean, we'll see. We'll see where he ends up. Like I said, the reason why Joey Bosa is in my top guy, he's an over 30 quarterback hit guy. And if you're looking at our list, you got Shaq Barrett, Darius Smith, T.J. Watt, Matt Judon are all linebackers, right? With the sleeper tag of defensive end. Because let's be real, if T.J. Watt was considered defensive lineman, he'd be my number one. I'm just being honest with you.
He'd be everyone's number one.
Yeah, he's massive. But Joey Bosa is the one guy in the first 7 guys that are over 30,
a true DE,
and is a true DE. So because Chandler Jones is right there too.
Yeah.
And then the next guy is his brother, and Nick Bosa, and then Cameron Jordan. So that's the guys that when I'm talking about true defensive ends and you're seeing big quarterback hit guys, that's why Joey Bosa is so high on me. That's why Myles Garrett is so high on me. So I would love to see more higher tackle numbers out of Myles Garrett. That's the only thing that bothers me about him. So
yeah, I mean, I agree with you. 29 last year and full 16 the year before. He only had 44. Those are some, those are like Yannick Ngakoue type tackle numbers right there for a 16-game season. That's always been the big knock on Yannick, is his tackles have been kind of low. But, I mean, again, he's kind of focusing on his pass rush. He does get a lot of tackles for loss, 9, 12, and 11 through his career. He had 11 last year in only 10 games, so he was on pace to blow away his previous year total of 12. Pass deflections are there for his career, already more than Myles Garrett has in his 6-7 years in the league. So, or not Myles Garrett, Danielle Hunter. So that gives you, he's getting points other places as well. So he's making up for that little bit lower tackle floor. But like you said, if there is a knock on him, it is, I don't know if he's ever going to hit that 65, 70 tackle season, So something to watch, something to monitor. Maybe he gets there this year, which would be awesome if he did.
And if he does, then he's guaranteed an All-Pro.
Oh, guaranteed. Yeah. Which is kind of funny, circling back around. Danielle Hunter, I noticed, never had an All-Pro season. Myles Garrett still hasn't either, and has Joey Bosa.
But Linval Joseph did, and he's gone, and that's why Danielle Hunter's dropped on my list.
Yep. Yep.
So
All right, let's move on down to number 3. Number 3 for me was Nick Bosa. Now I've got Nick ahead of Joey, and that's on purpose. Let me pull up this video real quick. Nick last year, there was a little concern because he was hurt his last year to Ohio State. People were like, is he going to be able to stay on the field? This, that, and the other thing. The
pulled his
reality is,
hamstring in the offseason.
yeah, the reality is, Nick Bosa had 16 tackles for loss. I love to see that. 25 quarterback hits. Love to see that. 2 pass deflections. I've already talked about those. Love to see that. An interception. I mean, he is the definition of a do-it-all guy, at the defensive end position. And that line was a complete total record. But, I mean, look at the athletic play he just made right there. I mean, he jumps up, he snags this ball out of the air, and then he takes off with it. I mean, he wasn't satisfied with knocking it down. I mean, he went for it. The only other guys who do plays like that, the only other guys who do athletic things like that is TJ Watt. And to have a guy that is that versatile on your line, where he is going to get you the sacks. Like, do not get it twisted. He will get behind the line of scrimmage and he will put that quarterback on the ground. But he can also do things like that. He can take the ball away. He can turn the ball over. That's something that is very valuable to your defense into IDP too. I mean, those are big points right there. I mean, he almost ran that touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, he almost housed it. My question to you is losing DeForest Buckner going to hurt him?
Honestly, I don't think so. I mean, he is such, like we've said this before, when you're a defensive player, you're kind of an autonomous human being on the field. You really just need to beat your matchup or matchups and get your points. It's a little different than offense where you have to have the ball funneled to you. Sure, it helps to have other guys around you, but that line is still stout, even with DeForest Buckner leaving. They added Javon Kinlaw, who had many people has a number 1 or 2 DT in this rookie class. They've still got Eric Armstead, who is, if you're a PFF junkie,
I love Eric Armstead.
Inside, outside, he's very versatile everywhere. D Ford's supposed to be coming back from his injury. So this line, I mean, yeah, it lost a little bit of its juice, but we're also getting Bosa in his second year. So, maybe he's better, So I'm a Nick Bosa guy. I think that he's, in his rookie year, he put up such phenomenal numbers without even getting a double-digit sack season. He finished top 15 in IDP 1, 2, 3 scoring as a rookie, without getting those monster sack numbers that some of these guys were getting. So he's my number 3. Where'd he come in for you? 6, I think.
He came in for 6 for me, and I'll be honest with you, I really, really want to put Max Crosby on my top 10.
Dude,
but here's the thing, and if you, and I'm going to say this over and over and over, Nick Bosa won Defensive Player of the Year last year for rookies.
Mm-hmm.
However, he wasn't the best rookie in sack numbers, was he?
No. It was Josh Allen, 10.5.
My God, Josh Allen, in 60% of snaps. Josh Allen shot up my board because of that, because he's going to get 100% of snaps this year, at least 85. So 25% more snaps. Give me all of that.
Only 2 less quarterback hits. Only 2 less quarterback hits than Nick Bosa too, on a lot less snaps.
On a lot less snaps. So
we're big QB hit guys around here.
I'm a huge Josh Allen fan. The Max Crosby also had 10 sacks, right?
Yeah, 10.
So Max Crosby was ideally, if you talk about defensive linemen, steal of the draft. Because how many other guys got 10 sacks, in the 4th round? So also a guy who had hand surgery in the offseason, because he broke his hand during the Hard Knocks episode. Mm-hmm. So you look at stuff like that. I really, really want to put Max Crosby in here, but I think people focus on him a little bit more this year. I think Nick Bosa is just a freak. And I love Nick Bosa, and he's my number 6. I just don't have him as high as you, because I'm fading because of the other guys.
That's fine. And I mean, 6 is still, that's about where I see him get drafted, honestly, still right now. He's usually the 5th or 6th guy off the board behind kind of the guys that you kind of have ahead of him. So that's fair. That's completely fair, I think, and justified. I mean, we haven't seen him put up that top 5, season yet. I have him at 5, but
I'm going to refer back to my Jordan Reigns commentary. He's only done it 1 year, right? If we're
Yeah.
gonna devil's advocate here, your favorite thing about Derwin James is he had one good season, his rookie season, uh, got injured, and everybody's got Derwin James as their number one guy for some reason.
He did it
I'm
back
kind
up.
I'm
Yeah.
kind of on the same way with Nick Bosa, right? He did it one season. He was slow at first. He had a good first game, and then disappeared for 4 games, and then came back strong. I think DeForest Buckner hurts him just a little bit. I think Eric Armstead actually might get more love because people focus on Nick Bosa. So I think teams playing for Nick Bosa and don't playing for Eric Armstead. So I think they kind of even each other out this year. That's the only reason he's number 6 for me compared to number, 4 for you. So 3 for you.
I got Joey at 4. My 4 is Joey. Your 4 is Aaron Donald. Let's talk about Donald a little bit. You saw the news, I'm assuming, and we got tagged in something yesterday by our buddy 420 Hustler. He's an IDP head too. Aaron Donald taking reps at DE as well as he's built like a fire hydrant.
He is a monster, dude. And to put him on the defensive end, we're seeing, left guards not handle him. We've seen left tackles not handle him. And, it doesn't matter where he's at. He's got some of the best hands in football. He's still pretty young. I love the move. If he gets to play some defensive end snaps, I think he gets 2 or 3 more sacks. So, and I'm down for that.
Nice.
So I love him, dude.
I've got him at selection area as well, which, I kind of always bring that up. But Aaron Donald is one of the better guys about jumping up and knocking balls down, kind of like, what's his face, J.J. Watt. Everybody used to talk about that for him. Nobody brings it up for Aaron Donald. He's got, 5 all-pro seasons back to back to back. He's never not had at least 1 pass deflection. He's had up to 5. And again, he's had a 20.5 sack season, averaging 20 tackles for loss a year. You got him at 4. I've got him at 6. And the only reason I've got him at 6 and not a little bit higher is, really just because he's I don't want to say his ceiling's a little bit lower because he does have that 20 sack season, but that was during the year that Ndamukong Suh was there. He's usually more around that 9-10 area. And that for me falls kind of closer to my tier 2 defensive lineman. But because he does so much else in the pass deflection department, in the tackle for loss department, in the forced fumble department, he's had multiple forced fumbles every year the past 4 years. Those impact plays are high enough to where even though I don't necessarily think he's going to get back up to even close to 20 sacks again, he's going to get the points. So he comes in at 6 for me, 4 for you. He's 29 years old. We've just saw a couple of guys, Chandler Jones, 29. I think Cameron Jordan's 29, just had a couple of their best seasons of their career. So don't fade. We kind of were – I'm not going to lie. I faded him a little bit last year. I kind of knocked him a little bit last year, but he started off the season cold. I think it was 4 weeks before he had a sack. But he still ended the season with 12.5 sacks. So he kind of put me in my place, and I'm not fading him too hard this year. Aaron Donald, you all know what he's about, what this guy gets done. He's an absolute stud. And like I said, Jared's got him at 4. I've got him at 6.
I love him, dude. I'm probably the biggest Aaron Donald truther on the planet when he was coming out of college at Pittsburgh. I was actually at the Senior Bowl, and I was enamored, dude. I just couldn't believe I couldn't believe he went to Pittsburgh. You know what I mean? He's that good. He's got the best hands in the league. He's the reason why Neville Gallimore got drafted. They're both stocky, quick-handed guys. I would love to see Neville Gallimore develop into Aaron Donald. I don't know if he is going to, but they're both 300-pound guys or sub 300-pound guys and just beasts. So I would love to see Aaron Donald return to his 22 to 24 tackles for loss. So, which nice. I think could happen with the schedule they have. So,
my number 5 guy and your number 5 guy are different. Let's talk about yours first. Your number 5 guy is Jarod Jordan. Now, go ahead and tell us why he's your number 5. For me, he is number 7, but that's barely any different. But what do you like about Jarod Jordan?
For me, hands down, most consistent floor guy in football. We talked about a couple weeks ago when we did the preview for the division. Jarod Jordan you know exactly what you're going to get every year, and you might even going to get a great play. He had a touchdown, called back on him last year, which should have been a fumble recovery for a touchdown, which would have been, a lot more points for him. So,
Mhm.
especially if you got, fumble recovery stuff for him. But I mean, man, he's
Man,
a
look at that.
great spy. I mean, his closing speed is great, dude. I mean, his he's a guy who's you don't talk smack to this guy on Twitter because he will come at you. Ask Jordan. Um, he he's active in everything, and he's a team leader. Everybody keeps talking about Davenport. Listen, Davenport isn't Cameron Jordan. Cameron
No.
Jordan is the top floor guy in football. He is a 15-point guy and is there all day. So, and if you're going to get 15 points every week out of your defensive lineman and possibly a 30-point week out of the defensive lineman, give me that guy.
Yeah.
So, Cameron Jordan's for real. So,
Monster. I think he was one of like 6 or 7 guys last year, I believe, that hit a 50-point week in IDP 1-2-3 scoring. I think he might have maybe hit like 48, 49, but it was up there. It was at week 14, 15. I mean, it was close to the end of the season. He had a monster
hey,
week.
he probably won you a game.
Oh,
So,
yeah. I mean, you just like you said, you know what you're getting. I mean, the floor is so high with him. His tackles are right around 50 a season. That's great. That's what you are looking for. That 50, 60 area is, close to what I call an elite of defensive linemen. Tackles for loss, I mean, he's basically, this is the last 4 years, 17, 17, 18, 15. That's just his tackles for loss on impact plays. He's basically hitting a monster threshold there. One of these years, he had 17 tackles for loss and 11 pass deflections. So that right there is almost 30 impact plays, not counting the forced fumbles, not counting the fumble recoveries, not counting the sacks. I mean, so this guy, on top of the fact that he had 60 tackles, so he doesn't get the love because he hasn't shoot up on these. He doesn't have these gaudy sack numbers. This last year was his best sack season with 15 and a half. But again, 30 years old, he just has best season. So that's why I'm not fading a lot of guys that I feel like some people are fading, just because they're getting older, quote unquote. I mean, you can still, on the defense, some of these guys they're like a fine wine.
well,
They
I
get,
mean, that's what we're talking about. If you had 15 sacks, 15 tackles for loss, and 10 pass deflections out of a guy, where are you going to put him? If I didn't give you the name, where would you put him?
he would be top 5.
Yeah. So, I mean, Cameron Jordan's real, dude. And that's not talking about quarterback hits. He's right up there, too.
Yeah, every
He's
year, he's gone. The last 5 years, 20, 24, 28, 21, 25. He's getting
so
to the,
his floor is 21.
yeah.
That's legit, dude. I mean,
Sign me up for some Cam Jordan this year. He's a great defensive end or DL1, and you can get him usually 3-4 rounds after that first DL guy goes, and he's going to stay neck and neck with him every week, and he might beat your opponent's DL1. So definitely a big Cameron Jordan fan. I got him at 7. You got him at 5. IDP Army, we are Cam Jordan fans here. So
for sure.
let's move down. You got Nick Bosa at 6. We already kind of talked about Nick Bosa a little bit, so we won't linger there. At number 5 for me, we'll talk about J.J. Watt. I got J.J. Watt at 5. You got him at 9.
I almost put him in my top 5, to be honest with you. I mean, I just changed my list because you and me like to go back and forth. If J.J. Watt stays healthy, he might be the number 1 guy. If he plays 16 games, there's no other player that gets more quarterback hits than J.J. Watt. I mean, you
Yeah.
look at it. That dude had a 50
52 pressures in, what did he play, 8 games or 10? I don't even remember.
52 quarterback hits in 3 years ago, something like that. So he had 52 pressures and he barely played last year.
Mm-hmm.
So
8 games, he had 52 pressures.
He's elite.
Yeah.
So you tell me he gets 104 pressures? That's ridiculous. If we turn 20, half of those into quarterback hits, that's 50 quarterback hits.
Well, think about this. Yeah. Myles Garrett had 49 pressures in 10 games. J.J. Watt had 4 more in 2 less games. We got Myles Garrett up at 2, both of us.
Like I said, if it's his health, 100% his health. Yeah. If J.J. Watt is healthy, he might be my number. I'll tell you this: if he stays healthy for 16 games, he'll be the number 1 defensive lineman in football, bar none.
Yeah.
It's whether or not he's played 16 games.
And I feel like us fading him down a little bit in our top is appropriate. I mean, we faded him down to I got him at 5, which I don't think is a fade. I'm probably the most bullish of anybody I know on JJ Watt this season. And you got him at 9. I've seen some people have him all the way down like in the late teens.
It's his health, man, 100%. But thing is, when he's healthy, name me a lineman that wants to handle him. And
yeah,
there's video of him handling Trent Williams in his prime. So
yeah. Well, you think week 1, where are people going to rank JJ Watt week 1 in their defensive line rankings? You're not going to be ranking him in the teens week 1. I promise you that.
no.
Week 2, where are you going to be ranking him? As long as he's on the field, he's going to be in people's top 10. So it's kind of weird to me that people they're projecting an actual injury to occur. I mean, I get that he is, quote unquote injury prone, but that's not like a real thing. Like, before he got injured, he played how many 16 game seasons in a row? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row, 2 injury seasons, another season of 16 games, injured this last year. So 2/3 of the time, this guy plays 16 games, starts 16 games. He's getting up there, like you said, 50 plus quarterback hits. He's had seasons of 29, 29, 40, 39 tackles for loss. Okay. All he has to do is be healthy, and his ceiling is the roof. It's unreal. So I'm not.
I mean, if you just talk about that, I mean, tackles for loss, IDP 1 2 3 scoring is what?
3 points. Well, tackle for loss is 2. It usually stacks with the solo, so it ends up being a 4 point.
It's going to stack with a solo, so 4-point play, right?
That's play.
Does it count as and what? And then you got 50 quarterback hits, right? So we're talking 100 points right there.
Yeah,
we're not talking about sacks.
He hadn't hit a sack. He hasn't deflected a pass. He hasn't forced a fumble. Oh yeah, 2 years ago when a year before last, had his highest forced fumbles of his career was 7. I mean, I understand wanting to fade him because you're scared, but I'm not fading him. He's 5 for me in redraft. He's 9 for you in redraft. We should, his resume speaks for itself. So
he's healthy, bro.
Yeah, and he says
he feels as good now as
And they've been, and it was a pec injury too last year. It wasn't like a knee thing. I mean, how many guys hurt their pecs last year? I mean, Quan Alexander, Roquan Smith, JJ Watt, 2 or 3 other defensive guys were hurting their pecs. It's not like this is an uncommon thing. I mean, it happens. I'm not fading him. Like I said, he's top 5 for me. I've got him ahead of some stalwarts on my list. I've got him ahead of Aaron Donald. I've got him ahead of Cam Jordan. Because if all these guys play 16 games, I think he's gonna have the better season. So
I agree. If he plays 16 games, JJ Watt might be like I said, he might be my number 1. So, and I truly believe that.
Is a man. Man. All right. So Aaron Donald was my number 6. We've kind of already talked about Aaron Donald. I mean, he's another guy. His resume speaks for itself. Aaron Donald plays all 16 games every year. He never has had an injury issue. 20 tackles for loss. His sack season, he had that 20 sack season, but other than that, he usually hovers around 9, 10, which is perfectly fine when you're getting all those extras. Don't get me wrong. So, but we won't linger on him. Next guy I have after him is Cameron Jordan. We've already kind of talked about Cameron Jordan a little bit. So let's talk about Josh Allen. He's your number 7. I have Cam Jordan at 7. We talked about him. Tell us why Josh Allen, you're so bullish on Josh Allen. You kind of hit on it earlier, but can I tell the people why you're confident in Josh Allen this year and why they should be drafting him as a top 10 DL?
Like you said, 60% of snaps and a lot less snaps than Nick Bosa. Had 2 less quarterback hits than Nick Bosa. 2 on a lot less snaps. He had Calais Campbell in front of him. When he played, the dude was ridiculous. I mean, Josh Allen is the truth. I mean, he's as fast as they come. I mean, you see this closing speed, that's a forced fumble. That's a sack forced fumble. So he's as real as they come, right? And if you look at his floor in the games that he played, we're talking 15 points. We're talking a ceiling of 50. And I'm not being boyish about this at all. Josh Allen is shot up my board as soon as Calais Campbell was gone. And I want Giannis Ngakoue to stay because you got to focus on one of them. And Josh Allen is the younger, more athletic linebacker, sure tackler, and just straight out stud. Josh Allen is, if there's one person that I am selling high on all year long, and I started last year is Josh Allen. He's the real deal.
Yeah. I'm with you
So
through and through. I mean, he's not top 10 for me. I think I have him at like 13 or 14. But yeah, the numbers speak for themselves. 60% of snaps, only started 4 games, led rookies in sacks, 10.5. 23
led.
quarterback. Yeah, led. Only 2 quarterback hits behind Nick Bosa. His tackle number was 44, which I believe is 1 more than Nick Bosa. Again, this is on less snaps. Pass deflections are not there for Josh Allen, which is something, but 60% of snaps, I mean, he didn't get as many opportunities as some guys. 2 forced fumbles. He's a long player. He's got long arms, like you said. His get off is pretty good. The line is a little different. Calais Campbell is gone. Yannick is probably leaving. But if anything, that just means more for Josh Allen. I mean, he's going to have to be the guy to get these sacks if Jacksonville gets them. Him and Chason and whoever else they kind of have rotating in there. But he should make a really big jump this year. I love that pick. His PFF grades were not super high, but PFF is there's a little bit to be read between the lines there for sure. But I'm a Josh Allen fan. I'm glad that you have him in our top 10. I hope people realize I have leagues where he's my 3rd or 4th defensive lineman, and I'm like, hell yeah, baby. Like, I'm about that life. And early in the offseason, he was
he's my untradeable.
Yeah, I mean, in Dynasty, to get a guy like that, I mean, you got him year 1. He's 22 years old right now, had a 10.5 sack season. Sign me up. I mean, if he doesn't get hurt, he's going to be a great player for years to come. So that is your number 7. You have Carlos Dunlap at 8. Let's let you go ahead and talk about Carlos Dunlap. I know he's coming off a really great season. You're higher on him than a lot of people. Tell me about Carlos Dunlap.
Well, here's the thing: is I think the emergence of Hubbard has really helped Carlos Dunlap. And if people are fading Hubbard, which everybody's fading Hubbard except for me, I guess. I love Hubbard. I loved him coming out of college. I think he's as good as they come. But for me, that's the Ndamukong Suh effect that we've seen with Aaron Donald and now Shaq Barrett is kind of with Carlos Dunlap. I mean, you saw the emergence. When Hubbard had a good game, Dunlap had a better game. So if they focus on one, they can't get the other. And I think Dunlap has another good season. And I think that offense is going to be better with Joe Burrow. He just had a practice the other day where he went 6 for 6 and a touchdown in the opening scrimmage. So, the defense is going to play well. And I think Carlos Dunlap has another great season on him. Now, is he a dynasty guy for me? No. But I think he's a great add this year. And for the value, his ADP is nothing. So people are fading Carlos Dunlap, and I think that's why, he had one good year. No, if you look at it, he had more than one good year. So check him out. I think he's good.
He's kind of like Cameron Jordan. I mean, he's consistently high quarterback hits, consistently high tackles for loss. He doesn't have the high sack ceiling. He's only been over double digits once, but his pass deflections, he's got 38 pass deflections as a defensive lineman in the last 4 years, the last 4 seasons. Think about that.
That's almost an average of 10 a season. So
yeah, that's insane. Times 3 points. That's 68 total points. Divided by 6. That's the same as 11 sacks. I mean, that's the same as 11 sacks that he didn't get. So he's making up, in a way and in a place that some of these other guys just don't, 8, that's more than Joey Bosa and Danielle Hunter and Myles Garrett have combined their whole careers. He had that last year. Okay. So don't sleep on Carlos Dunlap. I love that pick. There's nothing sexy about Carlos Dunlap, but when push comes to shove, he gets the points. By the end of the season, some way, some shape, somehow, he has the points to help your team win. And he's dirt cheap. You can get him as, DL 26, 27 sometimes. If you're playing with Sharks, some Sharks kind of are aware that, he's kind of undervalued and they'll go get him a little earlier. But like you said, he and Sam Hubbard they're getting like that quiet fade. And I get it.
Because they're on the Bengals.
Exactly. So, team equity, team brand equity matters more than you think, especially in IDP where it's just you a lot of people just want to take guys they know, which is totally fine, and I get that. But don't sleep on Carlos Dunlap. I'm glad that we were able to get him into one of our top 10 spots here for people. Let me see here. Who's my number 8? My number 8 guy is Cameron Hayward. With Cam Hayward, it really comes down to the consistency. I mean, the last 2 years, Cameron Hayward has been an absolute beast in the middle of the field there for the Steelers. Accumulating 51 tackles the year before last, 83 this last year, 8 and 9 sacks. The year before that, he had 12. I mean, he's getting these big numbers. His tackle for loss numbers, double digits the past 3 years. Pass deflections, again, coming back to that. He's had 12 the last 3 years. Forced fumble, at least one forced fumble every year for the past 3 years. He's really just almost, like you said, getting better as his career goes along. And that Pittsburgh defense is insane. I mean, he's maybe the best defensive player, but on any other team, on any other defensive line, he might be the best guy. But with TJ Watt there, we have Minkah Fitzpatrick, another highly touted, very good at his position guy. So he might not be the best defensive player on the Steelers, but he very well could if you really sit back and think about it. Stephon Tuitt is coming back. That might be a part of the reason his tackle number got so high this last year is because Tuitt missed some time. But Tuitt should be coming back. Both these guys are great, interior defensive linemen. And I don't think people need to just forget or fade Cameron Hayward because he's not a 4-3 defensive end. I mean, I see a lot of people who just want to, the easy thing to say is, well, if a guy doesn't play 100% of snaps, he gets faded. Or if a guy is an interior defensive lineman, he gets faded. Or if he's a 3-4 defensive end, he gets faded. That's anecdotal and that's broad sweeping, and I'm not a big fan of that. That's just a little too I don't know what the right word is, just a little too passive for me. Sometimes you gotta plant your flag on these guys. I'm like, look, the situation might not be exactly what you want statistically, analytically to produce, but at the end of the day, if he's producing at a high level 3 years in a row, I'm not gonna bury him. So I love Cam Hayward. Another guy that did not make my top 10 that's kind of like that is DeForest Buckner. I think I have him at 14, 15, 16 this year. Grady Jarrett's another guy that is definitely well within my top 25. That is not, your traditional 4-3 defensive end, but we won't get too far in the weeds on that. I'm just letting you guys know Cam Hayward is probably going to end up, again, another top option this year. He has the ceiling, and he's definitely got the floor. So that was my 8. We already talked about your 8, which was Carlos Dunlap. Let's talk about our 9s. My 9 is Chase Young. This is the rookie. For me, it really just comes down.
Flag early.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at last year. We had 3 rookies finish in the top 50 or top 20. We had Josh Allen finish. I think he might have finished actually 22 in IDP 1, 2, 3 scoring. But then we had Max Crosby and Nick Bosa both finished in the top 15 in IDP 1, 2, 3 scoring. Do you think Chase Young is a better player than those guys? Yes. I mean, he's coming out as a prospect. He seems to be even better than Nick Bosa, and Nick Bosa has been touted for years. Chase Young's been touted for years. His tackle for loss numbers are insane. I don't have them right in front of me, but in like 12, 13 games last year in college, he had, I think, like 20, 18, 19, 20, something like that. And shout out to Hayden Winks. I don't know if anybody follows him on Twitter, but he did some studies on, guys coming in and transitioning into the NFL. And one of the most predictive metrics of defensive lineman success in the NFL is a high tackle for loss number. Chase Young's got that on his resume, along with the fact that he's got a ton of sacks on his resume.
His quarterback kid's just ridiculous.
Yeah. So to me, I'm gonna take my shot. I'm putting him in my top 10 for this year. I think that Chase Young is in a position to succeed, especially with all the talent around him. I mean, there's just going to be so much pressure on opposing quarterbacks. It's going to be unreal. And you can't just focus on Chase Young and eliminate Chase Young because Matt Ioannidis is going to be on your back. Ryan Kerrigan is going to be on your back. Jonathan Allen is going to be on your back. Montez Sweat is going to be on your back. I mean, like they're just going to collapse the pocket over and over and over, which is probably going to get some of these quarterbacks scared where they want to hand it off. Great. Give me those tackles for loss, and he's probably the best player on that defensive line already. And that's saying something because, like we said, that defensive line is one of the best ones in the league. It's them.
Oh, they're real, dude.
So
they're real.
Chase Young, rookie, I got him in my top 10. I'm planting my flag on him. I think that he's going to be a lock for, let me see. Let me think here. When it really comes down to it, to me, he could have 10 or more sacks pretty easily. 18 quarterback hits. I think that's going to be a breeze for him. I think 45 tackles is going to be a breeze for him. and 15 impact plays, 20 impact plays, I think are on the table. So if you can hit all those thresholds, you are easily comfortably within the top 10. So unless, a couple of guys
Yeah,
have these
I'm with you.
monster outlier seasons. So I'm a
If
Chase Young
if
guy, and redraft, I'll take him. Dynasty, I'm taking him. I'm
Dynasty,
stocking
he's
up.
a must.
Yeah, I'm stocking up on
Yeah.
all my Chase Young. So who'd you have at 8? You had or 9. You had JJ Watt. We already talked about him. Let's circle back down to 10. Let's finish this show out. We'll talk about mine real quick, DeMarcus Lawrence, and then we can talk about Dante Fowler for you. DeMarcus Lawrence, the pressures were there last year, which is something that a lot of people, they look to. They say pressures are more indicative of success. I'll buy that for this narrative purposes. He was coming off the shoulder surgery, so you have to assume that even though he'd rehabbed and even though he was feeling better, he still wasn't 100%. He held out. He got his contract. He got his money. They brought Robert Quinn in last year. Quinn was a total beast. Played only 14 games there, but maybe that took away a little bit of the upside that Robert Quinn or that DeMarcus Lawrence had. They brought in Everson Griffin. But for me, the fact that he has proven himself to be elite, the fact that he has had these high tackle for loss seasons and these, premier sack seasons, I'm not going to fade him too much. Last year, I had him in my top 5, and he did burn me. He burned a lot of people. But when push comes to shove, a 16-game season for DeMarcus Lawrence can look like 14 and a half sacks, 58 tackles, 14 tackles for loss. He still managed 10 tackles for loss last year, even coming off the injury. So I'm putting him back. He's in my top 10. He just squeezed into my top 10. He's just ahead of Justin Houston for me, but I'm expecting a big bounce back. The 5 sacks, I think he's easily going to crush 5 sacks. That number this year could probably easily double it. I could see him tripling it. So give me all that for cheap. I drafted him. He's a guy that I've been drafting when I do go quote unquote 0 DL, which, means, I'm not taking DL till about the 15th to 18th guy's gone. DeMarcus Lawrence is just there. Like, he's almost always there. So give me DeMarcus Lawrence this year. I'm going to risk it. I don't think it's that much to risk, honestly. So he's my number 10. What do you think about him this year? And then we'll talk about your number 10, who is Dante Fowler.
Yeah, for me, DeMarcus Lawrence, I love DeMarcus Lawrence. I loved him coming out of college. When he's good, he's really good. He hasn't had those crazy year in a couple of years since he got his contract, but overall, he's pretty solid. And I think he's as good as they come when he plays, and that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, he's about as good as they come when he plays.
Sorry.
And no, you're all good. And it is kind of a bummer that the sacks weren't there last year, but honestly, this is a buy low opportunity. He is 27. You might feel like he's young, up and coming guy. He's only 2 years younger than, a guy like,
Aaron Donald.
Aaron Donald, Cameron Jordan. So he's a veteran, he's in the kind of the prime of his career. So buy now, buy low. That's kind of my thought on DeMarcus Lawrence.
Yeah, you're getting him cheap.
Yeah, you're getting him cheap this year. You can get him as a DL2, DL3 sometimes, depending on how you build your team. So I would love to have DeMarcus Lawrence as my DL3. So let's talk about your number 10 guy, though. Let's talk about Dante Fowler. Tell me why you love the Dante Fowler move to Atlanta.
So I think you got to see what Dante Fowler was. He was a first round draft pick. You finally got to see what he was last year. And dude, he's hard to handle. A healthy Dante Fowler is exactly what you're going to get last year. He's as good as they come. He's got a great swim move. He's good edge guy. He's fast. I mean, he's legit. Got some elite speed. He knows he's as good as they come, and I think the Rams just realized that, hey, we're gonna have to pay one of these guys, and even though they traded for Dante Fowler, you got rid of him. I mean, they did so much big money trades. A couple years ago, Marcus Peters, Dante Fowler, who's the Akeem Talib. They got all these guys, and they're all gone now. Because Aaron Donald's the guy. That's their defensive scheme. Dante Fowler going to Atlanta is going to be what they wanted out of Adrian Claiborne. He's real. 10 sacks, no problem. Especially in the division that pass is probably more than anybody in one division. I call it, I think they're the Big 12 of the NFL. So, I mean, to keep up with the Saints, you better pass the ball. And with that aspect, and then you keep it with Atlanta, you got to pass the ball.
Yeah.
So Don Fowler's going to get his chances for sacks. So.
Yeah, I think you're honest on there where he's going to get his chances for sacks. You go back and look, people are like, oh, he didn't really do much with the Jags. He didn't pan out. He was playing.
He tore his ACL.
Coming out of college, tore his ACL, but then, you really look at it, they didn't let him start. He didn't start any games at all. He started one game in Jacksonville ever. That was it. He played 16 and 16. He played 16 and 17. He started one in those 2 years.
Well, they had Ngakoue and Campbell, so
yeah,
it's kind of one of those things like they could afford to let him go.
Well, then you look at his, the snaps he's playing. He's playing 50% of snaps his rookie year, 45% the next year, and then he only played 16% in Jacksonville in 2018. He comes to the Rams in 2019. He finally gets snaps. He played 80% of snaps. What did he do? He broke out. He played 880 snaps. This guy goes off for the first time in his career. 16 tackles for loss, 58 combined tackles, 6 pass deflections, 2 forced fumbles, a touchdown, a fumble recovery, 11 and a half sacks. He started 14 games for them. So he finally got a chance and he delivered. So then you flip over to a guy like Vic Beasley in Atlanta. The last 2 years, he got 64% of the snaps, which is 700 total, and then he got 73. If Dante Fowler is going to be allowed to play, we've seen him be successful. So if we can assume that they paid him all this money, they're not going to do what Jacksonville did and not start him. They're not going to do what Jacksonville did and play him 40% of snaps. He's going to be out there, at least, in my opinion, what Vic Beasley was. He's better than Vic Beasley, too. So he's going to be out there 65+% of snaps, which will be awesome. That's what you want from a defensive end. I'm looking for 65, 70. The great guys, you're looking for that 80, 85, 90. Those guys are kind of rare, but they exist. If he can get up in that range again this year, there's no reason in my mind that Dante Fowler can't, again, be a highly productive defensive end and a high ceiling guy for fantasy for IDP. So I love that you got him in your top 10. You squeezed him in there. I drafted him in a league I'm in with a bunch of other IDP heads around the internets and whatnot at DL 24. And I was very, very, very happy to get him as DL number 24. He's my DL 2 in that team. Sleeper, he's got the linebacker and DL tag. He's got upside. We finally saw when he was allowed, when they took the leash off, when they took the chain off, they said, just go get it. He went and got it. So I think Atlanta, they paid him that money. They're not going to hold him back. He gets to play next to Grady Jarrett, who's maybe not as dynamic of a player as Aaron Donald, he's good though. Exactly. And I think this next year, he's going to show a lot of people that his name needs to be up there with guys like Aaron Donald and DeForest Buckner. If you already haven't seen that, you need to be paying attention because he's that good. So I think Dante Fowler is in for another big successful year. Now I'm really curious where I have him ranked exactly because I just want to know compared to you. I think he's 15 for me, but the ceiling.
He is shot at my board when I really looked at the opportunity and what he's going to do. Besides Aaron Donald, who else is on the Rams defensive line? Nobody stands out to me.
So, I've got him at 16.
With Grady Jarrett, very, very, solid guy. I think that their defensive line is pretty decent overall. It might even be better overall than the Rams. So if he can do that with the Rams, being where he is now, and he can go to Atlanta and do at least that, I think he has almost a mirror image from last year, which puts him in the top 10. So.
Yeah, he gets to play true defensive end snaps because they do run a true 4-3 in Atlanta instead of an outside linebacker. The snaps, like we said, once he had snaps, he was productive. I don't see a world where he's getting under 70% of snaps in Atlanta after he just got paid. He should have a monster year, so I love that pick. We just got a question here from our man, Russ. We got to shout out Russ. He's always been supportive of us. He always listens to us. He always rides for us, so thank you, Russ. No Justin Houston in the top 10, he says. I've got Justin Houston at 11. That's where I'm at with Justin Houston. He's got a good opening schedule. He got DeForest Buckner added, And he was really good last year. I mean, the bottom line, a lot of people have kind of been fading him because he had been a little banged up with the Chiefs the
Well,
last
once he
couple
got
of
banged
years.
up, that's the only thing. Once he got banged up,
Exactly.
that's what he got faded on. I mean, he had 21 sacks one year. Or 22, right?
Yeah,
So
22. But you look at last year, he had 11. First year getting back over that hump. It was the first year he played 16 games in a while, too. 13 tackles for loss, 18 quarterback hits, 2 forced fumbles, no pass deflections. But he's still only 30. We've talked about a couple of guys on here already. It's like, well, 29, 30. That can be a great year for a defensive end. So I'm not fading him too much. I think that people have the last 3 or 4 years of him not being on the field consistently has made people slowly lower him down their rankings. But I'm not fading him. I could see him easily getting 12, 13, 14 sacks this year, along with all
Justin
of his
Houston can
numbers.
very easily move into this top 10. I'm with you. Like I can replace a guy here and there, especially with the addition of DeForest Buckner. I love Justin Houston. I drafted him in like 5 leagues. So
Yep.
I'm with you. I love Justin Houston overall.
Yeah,
So
and he's dirt cheap. I've got him at 10. I don't think anybody else I've seen in their rankings have him very high. So he's a guy that you don't have to pay a DL, 11 for to get. You can pay DL 20 price and you're going to get him. So there's that. We got a couple other questions here. Let's go ahead and just pull them on in. Does Brian Burns take the next step from Derek Monk on YouTube? Yes, I think he does. What do you think, Jarod?
completely agree. He's got the greatest face mask in football. If you haven't seen it, I continue to talk about it. He's got this Spider-Man face mask. He's good, dude. I love him. He was in my rookie IDP top 25 last year, and that's even before he really got an opportunity at Carolina. I agree with you. I think he takes a great step. I think you could see a big breakout from him. They're young. It seems like every single draft pick they used this last year was a defensive player, which was interesting, right? But I think that's part of Matt Rule.
Well, they're young
I
on
love Matt
offense,
Rule.
too. I mean, they got Ian Thomas as the tight end. I mean, Curtis Samuel's 23, DJ Moore's 23, Christian McCaffrey's 22 or 23. I mean, they are young on offense, and like you said, and they're good on offense, so they invested heavily on the defense this year. I've got Brian Burns right now down at DL 28, which it sounds bad, but I mean, when you look at the guys in front of him, Trey Flowers, Jason Pierre-Paul, Melvin Ingram, Eric Armstead, Grady Jarrett, I mean, I can't justify putting him ahead of guys like that yet. Now, if that defense is on the field a lot, and if he's healthy and he pans out like he looked like he was last year, he could easily jump up into that top 25, by the end of the season. But he's in my tier 3. I think 28 is a safe spot for him. I would love to have him as my DL3, DL4. I don't want to depend on him yet as my DL1, but I think he does take that next step. So
I think when it's all said and done, Brian Burns is going to be Calais Campbell career-wise, which is pretty solid.
We got one more comment here from Russ. He said, okay, top 12, that's cool. Buckner will help his stock. I agree. Buckner, I've got Buckner at 13. I was very bullish on him last year. He was one of my guys. DeForest Buckner is, for a defensive tackle that's not named Aaron Donald, he's about as consistent as they come. This guy's averaging 60 tackles a season, which is, if you play D tackles or you play DEs, if you're hitting 60, that's an awesome floor. And on top of that, he can get behind the line of scrimmage. He had like 4 or 5 fumble recoveries last year, which came from being on that very disruptive San Francisco line. I'm not fading him too much from last year. Like I said, I have him at 13. I think DeForest Buckner is just another monster in the middle. I've got him and Justin Houston two away from each other. So that pretty much rounds out our top 12. Thanks for the questions, guys and gals, if there's any gals out there. Let's pull in our man, Steve. What up, Steve?
How's it going, guys?
Good. What'd you think?
Oh, I thought it was great. I love the Josh Allen pick by Jarod here. He had 44 tackles, 10.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 11 tackles for loss, and 23 QB hits on 634 snaps. That was only 60% of the snaps.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's a producer.
That guy.
Amen. There you go.
Yeah.
Steve approved.
I'm not kidding you. I can see 20 sacks out of this dude at 85%. So 85 to 100%. If he breaks 90%, which is very possible with Calais Campbell gone, adding Clayvon Chase on in the middle, I'm telling you, watch out. Josh Allen could be a monster this year. I love him.
Yeah.
He's my favorite player. He's my
The
must-add dynasty player.
The upside is there.
Don't
sure.
you guys? Don't you have concerns with Danielle Hunter and the loss of Griffin and
I
Joseph?
continue to say this. Yeah, well, that's why he dropped to me. I've said it weeks and weeks and weeks now. You can check every video we had. Linval Joseph is the biggest loss for Danielle Hunter, and nobody's talking about it. And they need to.
Jared's got him at 3. I mean, Jared ain't blowing smoke. He's got Danielle Hunter at 3 behind Myles Garrett and Joey Bosa. So he's putting his money where his mouth is. I still got him at 1 because I'm a coward. I'm scared.
Yeah. I don't think you should
I could legit drop him to 5 and not be.
And that wouldn't
bother
bother
you
you
a
a
5
bit.
and not even think about it. Nope.
Oh,
Yeah,
baby.
I got the same concerns. He's not gonna produce the same as he did.
Yeah, I like it. It's interesting. It's, he's still one of at the very least, the name Danielle Hunter still commands a bit of respect in trades, and so even if he doesn't pan out the way we want, you can probably sell early in the season and figure your shit out.
And I mean, I didn't do it, but I love the Chase Young pick. It's bold. It's very bold.
That's how we roll, Steve. We ain't scared. We ain't scared. Well, I literally just a minute ago said I was a coward. So
we got an interesting close here. Question: random keeper question. Devin White for a 10th or Derwin James for a 14th. Thanks for the ITP content, guys.
Keeper. That's interesting.
I mean, if I'm keeping one of the guys, I think linebackers are deeper.
Yeah.
So
Derwin James in the 14th. That seems like a better value to me. I don't know the scoring of this league, but just off the cuff, I think that because Derwin James is going to be top 5, top 10 at his position for sure. Lock it in if he plays. Devin White, he's going to be top 25 at his position. Lock that in. So that's kind of where my thought process is. And you're getting Derwin James later.
Yep. Well, it's a keeper league. I think you can get Derwin James. Keep him. So, I think James is the pick for the keeper aspect of it. When it comes to Russell, just asked a question about Fletcher Cox. Man, it's just the age thing kills me for Fletcher. He's been injured off and on. He's a great stop guy, but he didn't blow me out of the water by any means. So,
yeah, I'm kind of out on the Eagles in general, but that's a whole nother conversation for later. All right, well, whole nother show. But that pretty much closes us out for the day. IDP Army, we appreciate you. Guys, go check out. I just started my own kind of different show, Defense Matters. I'm just going to be doing that in the season for my rankings. That's going to be on Expand the Box Score, so you can see my full weekly rankings. But I'm going to do a podcast to go with it to kind of break down my thought processes. You should be able to just Google that. That's look where you do podcasts. That's on Apple. That's on Spotify. That's on Stitcher. All that good stuff. So I put some stuff out on that here, there, and everywhere. So be sure you subscribe to that, as well as obviously you're going to be subscribing to the IDP 411. Leave us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice little review so we can get more people listening, more people sharper for the season, ready to play some IDP. And next week we are going to do the defensive back show. So we'll go over our top 10 DBs, which I'm sure will be a little bit spicy because we have some hot takes on some guys, and you guys will love that. And that's pretty much all from me.
Well, until next week, guys. Let's go.